Hello everyone and welcome to episode 39 of UK League Chat. We've been away for a few weeks. I've been moving house, so I've not really had the internet or even the time to do an episode, to be fair. But we're back just in time for the NLC Fall Open, so we're doing an episode that always goes down well, a classic tier list.
Okay. Well is one way to call it, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So the way we're going to do it then is we'll go group by group. As we go for each group, we'll say where we place each team, and then through that we'll kind of give our predictions on the group as well. So who we're expecting to go through. So to jump right in then, we'll obviously start with Group A.
I mean, can we just say you could tell you're rusty because you haven't even introduced your co-host of this right now. So
Do I normally do an intro for you, Tom?
yeah. Well, no, you don't. To be fair, let's be
more
honest.
Well, how have you been, Tom? Actually, well, yeah. Before we crack on, then you've had you've had a good change since the last episode.
Yeah. I had a haircut, so that's been nice. No, yeah. So obviously, I've now got a job as an actual esports journalist now, which is always nice. But obviously, the first thing I said was, the NLC podcast needs to stay, and they said yes. I was like,
That was a
good.
deal breaker. You made that.
That was
very clear.
100%. Yes, very clear. Couldn't do it without talking about the latest NLC gossip. But yeah, no. So obviously, I work for Esports Insider now. Really enjoyed it. Like, it kind of came at a good time with you moving and then me just going into the role. It kind of gave us a little bit of a break and coincided with the NLC obviously taking the break and then slapping this Fall Open with us. So maybe not much of a break as what we were expecting, but we're back in, we're ready, and yeah, like I said, we'll start with a nice tier list, which everybody loves. So
exactly. So let's jump in then. So let's start with Group A. And I suppose we'll start. We're just basically on Leaguepedia. We can just go through the order that it shows on there. It has Riddle in there first. Obviously, Riddle aren't exactly like the Riddle that we saw in summer. Is a completely new team now, and we'll obviously speak more about those other players later on.
yeah, I wonder where they must have all been separated.
Yeah,
Totally.
exactly. Yeah, well, we'll see. What are your thoughts then? I've gone for B tier, sort of middle of the pack.
Okay.
It's clearly not as strong as the team they had in summer, but that's would be hard to do without getting those players back. Yeah, it's kind of players. They've got a few players we've seen around the UK leagues and the NLC before, and they weren't exactly bad players. The likes of Chilm and Jack Spectra were. I think were they both Dusty? I think
Dusty,
right?
yeah.
And Dusty were they were an okay team. They weren't particularly bad. They weren't anything amazing. Energy in the mid lane I'm a bit more excited about. He was the one that came in for Monk when Monk moved back to ADC, and obviously looked pretty good. And MnM looked much better when he was there. Kind of would be easy to look good as a mid laner coming in after Monk with how he was playing, but still I thought he looked pretty good. And
the slide. I was just like, yeah, but no, you're completely right. That was something that I think MnM, Monk, and the entirety of like the Nordic scene will want to forget is Monk playing mid lane and that Cogmore game. I have nightmares of that Cogmore game still.
Yeah, I'm sure Monk does as well. But so yeah, not surprised that we'll talk about him later. Obviously, being still in ADC, I think the mid dream is finished. The other two, and I'll leave it to you to pronounce the top laner and the support. Not really players I'd heard of before, to be honest. So I haven't seen too much, so I can't really comment on those. But yeah, from the players that I know, I've gone for B tier. Like I say, wouldn't be too surprised to even see them get out of the group, but wouldn't expect them to be pushing to actually win the whole thing.
I think you're correct to say that. I put it down as a solid team. It's not a side which kind of has blown me away, unless kind of Quinn. Oh, I'm gonna try it. Quickseth, which is the support, and then Nijus. We'll go with that as the top laner, unless they are something which we've not seen before anyway. Obviously, it's important to note we've gone S plus to D, I believe is what it is. None of us have gone for an E. So lucky for some of those sides, I guess. But yeah, no, I like Keelam and I like Jack Spectra. I mean, I don't want to rag on Dusty last split because I feel like I was probably one of the most vocal people to kind of downgrade what they did, because I just felt like they didn't do anything. But Jack Spectra himself, I think, is individually quite a solid player and a NLC quality level player. And it's kind of interesting because we've kind of got to, like, this isn't the NLC in terms of like with Fnatic and XL. So, you know, there's going to be a quality difference. I mean, we don't even know if these are going to be the players which are going to be competing in these sides, but this is a shot for some of these players for when this NLC spring comes. So it's interesting to see kind of some of these new players and see if they do stick. I do think that there are going to be some roster changes depending on how performances go in this. So Jack Spectra and Keelam, I think, are great. I think energy is the key in this team. I really, really rated him. And like you said, maybe it was a bit of like Monk tinted glasses because, you know, I kind of saw how Monk played, but then energy, it stepped up. But I thought that energy was one of the core components of why MnM did so well and didn't get relegated in the end. And probably weren't even they were probably like the fourth worst team, which is quite good out overall. Like, they definitely weren't a relegation side, I think, by the time that they'd made all those changes. So I've also gone for B. With Quickseth, obviously, from looking at previous things, like the name, I heard the name previously, then I realized that he played on like XL just before I got into I started watching in like the UKLC kind of time. So it was just before that. I think it was like the XL just before even they went to franchising. It was literally like the split before. Yeah. So he seems like quite an experienced person. I think he played for I think it was like Ventus. I looked at, and he was the coach at one time as well when they were in EU Masters against Fnatic Rising. So that maybe shows that there is quite an experienced person and actually could be pretty good in a support role, because I do feel like if there's a role competitively where you've got to kind of think strategically a little bit like a coach, I think support is the best role to have that. And so he could actually prove to be a really good player when you've got, especially someone like Jack Spectra, who doesn't really put a foot wrong in most of what he does. They could prove to be a good side. So I put them B, but I put them kind of as like one of the stronger B tier sides which I've got.
Fair enough. I've only got two B tier anyway, so they
I've got a clump. I've got a massive clump of B.
So much B. Let's move on from then. So next in the list is XY Esports. Speaking before we started, I said to you, Tom, there's maybe 4 or 5 teams, literally, I don't know a single player. And this is one of them. Okay, spoilers. So I don't know any of the players. And I've just lumped them all in D. And if I don't know any players, and I've not seen them, I can't really tell they've even played around the top sort of Nordic or UK League or anything, I just put them in D. So, I'm ready to be proved wrong by XY and the others that I put there as well. But yeah, honestly, I didn't know much about these guys, so I'm excited to find out. I'll say that.
So I've also gone for D, and I feel really bad because I thought that you would have maybe, but like genuinely, like, so 2 of their players are formerly XY in the Telly Masters, and then and so was the 3 of their players actually. So I think Addy, Palco, and Bad Habit, I believe, were XY prior in the Telly Masters. And then they've got I believe it's Nippler who's going to be the top laner, I think, for this one. But I could be wrong. But so he used to play for Dusty pre-NLC. And then they've got kind of like they've got a UK resident as well in Jamsey. So, and he is very much like, you could probably say that we haven't done enough research in this side, and I could be completely honest if you're correct. But Jamsey's a player who's young. He's 19. He's actually a player who is up and coming, and if we're gonna have to put a ray of light, he's a UK jungler, and if the UK is good at one thing, it is junglers, right? We get good junglers going, So if he was a mid laner, I might not be as optimistic. But yeah, as a jungler, I'm quite optimistic to see how he does, and it'd be interesting to see how they do. And while I have put them so low, part of me was also skewed at the fact that we know that they're playing Riddle. And that group, actually looking at the group as a whole, maybe I've looked at the group as well and thought, that's a pretty bad group for them anyway. So maybe my opinion of them has gone down, knowing who they're going up against. But I can't see them being any better than some of the sides which are in there with full NLC quality rosters. I don't see anybody who stands out unless it's a name which suddenly comes out of nowhere, and that's unfortunate. But someone's got to be bottom, and at the end of the day, like I'd rather. I know this sounds really bad, but I'd rather kind of like one of the teams who had gone through like the Telia system have the worst team than us slating the likes of like ENCE or Barrage or something like that for putting like a terrible squad together. So I at least it's kind of like. At least it's a Telia side which has done this, not an NLC side, so I'm not as angry. So I can understand.
Then it could be like a lack of ambition or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, these guys came
and they've stuck with the players.
Yeah,
they've stuck with their players as well. And you know what? We've seen it with Godsend. Yeah, Godsend. If we're still honest to this day, as individual players probably weren't amazing, but as a unit, they were brilliant, and that's because they got the same 5 players and put them together. And they've done it with 3 of the players in this. So that could also have a really big effect in what is a knockout-style tournament. So
definitely. Let's go on then to the next one in that group. So we've got ENCE, who are...
The best team. The best team. I love this team.
So ENCE are... I think also are one of the teams that are completely unchanged from the kind of main summer split. Where have you got them? I'll let you go first on this one, Tom.
So I have got them at S tier. So right before this goes in, yes, I may have voted them like top. I think in the prediction, yeah. So maybe I'm a bit skewed with that, but I feel like there's so much value in having the same 5 players go into what is a tournament style knockout competition, and ENCE. Let's be honest, are going to be very angry about what happened in the NLC. And I'd hope they're very angry about what happened in the NLC, because in other situations, obviously we don't know, they could have been going into the knockouts. I don't think they were like a 5th place team with the way that kind of things I felt like were handled with scheduling wise and stuff like that. Like the infamous Nordavind kind of situation, that points back at me, which obviously you can't help in these situations, but it doesn't mean that ENCE weren't annoyed at it even more. So I think that these 5 players are a lot better than what they were in the NLC anyway. I think they're hopefully going to get a lot better. And on top of that, when you've not got the likes of like your Fnatic, you've not got the likes of XL, that then pushes them up in my estimation anyway. For me, this side, and the fact that they've gone for this side, considering how they've done for the NLC, this is one of the teams which I think they might just run it back again in January, or in spring anyway. Or this could be kind of the test to see, right, how are these players going to perform? And if these players do really well, why wouldn't you sign them all back? So
that's true, because it's kind of something we spoke about in the summer, was that they were sort of treating the first split as maybe testing the waters a bit, get the Finnish side together, just aim to stay in the tournament. But then if coming out of this, they actually, that side that stuck together builds on that and actually has a good finish, then wouldn't be too surprised.
And I think as well, like, their side performed a lot better than I think what a lot of people said. In terms of like scoreline, you would probably look at it and think, okay, that was fair. But actually, when you look at how they played, especially in certain games, they look so much better than I think what I even predicted. And that's why I kept predicting them, because they were always the team which I thought they could upset someone. And I do think that they have a very, very strong chance to do something in this competition. So I put them at S tier. Obviously, it's not S plus because there are a couple of teams still in there, but for me, when you've got like a full NLC ready roster and it's an NLC caliber roster going into this competition with, let's be honest, some not NLC caliber rosters just because of the organizations themselves. I don't think it. I think it'd be unfair to put them anywhere around the middle of the pack.
Mm-hmm.
And what about you? And this is where you're going to be like, I put them at C.
No, surprisingly not. I agree with you, Tom. I've got them in. Well, not fully. I haven't got them in S tier. I've got them in A tier. But I've only got 2 teams ahead of them in rankings. So yeah, I agree. I expect them to have a decent run. Like you said, like in the summer, they weren't one of the better teams really, but they weren't exactly bad. And I think the fact that they've fully stuck together, same coaches as well, I think is going to really help. You'd imagine that even if they haven't been scrimming, they would, the fact they've stuck together for 2 splits, you think they're probably mates by now. Might have even just duoed together, and that would have only helped, I can imagine.
And KOVA is in my fantasy team. So
I haven't done mine yet. I still need to.
It's great. Can we just wait? I know, obviously, this podcast is going to take ages anyway, because it's a ranking podcast. But can we? I just wanted your brief thoughts on what your opinions on this fantasy thing, because I think this fantasy idea is so good. And then this is only because I've obviously watched the NLC, but I love the way that kind of Esports One do their fantasy systems anyway. It's very traditional, like fantasy football kind of, you've got a budget kind of thing. So for me, it relates. So I'm really excited to see a lot of people and how people do this.
Yeah, because I remember like when was it this split or the split before? I don't remember when they added the one for the LEC. But then it was all this stuff with it was like trading cards or something weird like that. And I'm not saying it was particularly bad, but like for like kind of regular sports fans that are used to a certain type of fantasy league, it just wasn't what I was expecting. And so when I saw this, and I haven't made my team, but I had a little look around, and it looks like what you know, and it looks like it's gonna be a lot of fun. It's cool. It's got like the little boosts and that, so like you choose a captain, try and predict what champs are going to play. I think it's pretty good.
Right, I've got KOVA as my captain. What champ do you think I've picked that he'll play?
Ezreal?
Oh, this is KOVA. Yeah, Ezreal. I didn't even. I if there was an option for me not to pick a second champion, I would have done. It's like that guy's just going to play Ezreal,
and then you get the points again for the second time.
Exactly. Yeah, if that guy doesn't play Ezreal, then I'll be so upset, because when ENCE pick Ezreal for KOVA, they win. Even in the games where they don't win, they win. They win in everybody's eyes.
Yeah, we'll see. It's not really meta though, is it, Ezreal at the moment? So
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Monk played Cogmore mid. Like, it's fine.
Oh god. Let's move on from talking about Cogmore on Monk. So the last team in that group then are NVision. So NVision is another one of my D teams.
Okay. I love this. We are.
I've got
wildly different.
So, what I'll say is another one. I admittedly don't know much about the players. Pedersen, we obviously saw with Godsent, and he wasn't by any means bad. I wouldn't say he was really one of the kind of stronger points on Godsent. Mainly, you'd think of C-Boy, to be honest.
Yeah, I was just going to say, are you thinking that you just said, well, he wasn't C-Boy.
Yeah, exactly. But when I was having a look through their players, like there was the jungler music, it looked like he played a couple of tournaments like 2 years ago and then nothing, and then he's suddenly on their team. So that was one where I thought, it may be that he's just, I don't know, someone that sort of slept under the radar and could end up, just coming out of nowhere and being really good. So, could be way different from what I've gone for. Again, it's similar kind of thing with XY where I don't know that much, so I just slung him in D.
So I do want to avoid this for you. Music played in the Prime League last split.
Oh, did he?
Yes, for I checked this for Conwana Gaming, I believe it was. He finished 7th in the Prime League.
Have Leaguepedia let me down or what?
That's what Gamepedia. This is where we dip. Gamepedia is for me.
That's the one I'm on. Oh yeah, I'm actually blind. I just didn't even see it.
Okay, so this is where I'm like, okay, you've put him at D. I've put him at B. No, sorry, because we shifted this.
So you got him A.
I put him at A. Yeah.
Wow.
So what happened just behind the scenes is I went S to E, where Lee went a little bit nicer and went S plus to D. So I've shifted all mine up, which is still fine. Yeah, I've gone for A because I look at this roster and I think this is a dark horse kind of roster. So firstly, I'm gonna go for all of them because I'm really happy with all of these. Yeah, you look at Icebreak, obviously. A lot of people will know him who listened to us from Barrage a couple splits ago, but obviously was We Love Gaming last split, made it into EU Masters as well. Obviously, there's this growing meme around Greek teams making it into EU Masters, but still he made it in. We Love Gaming. They were a really, really good competitive side, I felt like, in that. And I really highly rate him as a player. And I'm glad to see him back in like the Nordic scene and to see how he's developed from his time at Barrage. You've then got Music, who was 7th in the Prime Division. And for me, like, again, it's looking at kind of how I view this level in terms of what the level of the rest of the players are. And while I think it's high, for me, if you can have like a Prime League player, I think that's pretty good, even though he was quite lower tier. Mm-hmm. And he could actually perform really well. And I think this is going to be one of these competitions where this is like a proving ground to see, okay, let's see how he can do against these players and kind of like a test, because what is 7th in the Prime Division? Yeah. We've seen players, I think Erin was one last split in the NLC where we're like, okay, well, where do we kind of rank Erin? Because Erin played, I believe, in the Italian league. I believe it was something like that. And we were like, well, where does his like kind of like middle of the table Italian league rank in the NLC? And it performed pretty well, I think, for Tricked anyway. So this is another one, I think, with Music, which I'm really interested in. You've then got Twizzit, who was at Granite, who, for me, the fact that he was close to kind of becoming an NLC player just through Granite Gaming in itself kind of sparks a bit more of a conversation that while he may not be kind of NLC ready, that this is his chance around what is quite a good roster to prove that and to see actually if he did deserve to be to qualify in, because I believe they lost. See, I don't want to get this right. I think they lost to MnM. I think they were the team which lost to MnM Granite. So that's for me quite an unfortunate team to face. Would you be able to double check that while I'm going on to the next one? Yeah, okay. I think it was Granite. You've then got Cavadia, who I don't actually know much about. So that's the unfortunate thing. I think he played in the French leagues, but not the LFL. So he's a bit of an unknown entity for me. And then obviously Pedersen. No, I'm gonna argue that I think Pedersen was a lot more important than what you think, because I think that for the team to do as well, I think you need good coordination. I do think Pedersen was kind of that player who helped coordinate the team and kind of helped that team through what was some difficult situations. Maybe mechanically he wasn't the best player in that Godsent roster, but there's something about having kind of a player who I think has like a voice, which I feel like he does, help a roster. Now it'd be interesting to see how he does that with essentially this is a completely 5-man complete different roster. So it'd be interesting to see how they do. But can we just shout out though, like maybe you won't commend them as much, but NVision have really gone out and I think they've looked at players and decided, right, we're going to go for this. And I really like that from a side which isn't an NLC side and isn't one of the sides who, yeah, they automatically qualified, but it wasn't a side who kind of needed to do that because, obviously the chances are, I'd be very surprised if these players are going to be playing in the UKLC next split. They could do, but this very much seems like we're going to try and make a name for ourselves in this competition and see what happens, which I really, really rate from an organization to do that.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. So then,
are you changing from D because of the fact that Music is in the Prime League?
I've made my bet.
Okay.
Don't worry. Who's getting through in the group then?
So I have. Oh, I need to look at the group. So it's ENCE, Riddle, XY, and NVision. I think it's going to be. See, so I think Riddle's going to go through.
Yeah.
It's the other one which I think. No, in fact, I don't think. Wait. Oh no, I have to. Right. Okay. So, if I'm being honest, the two strongest sides, in my opinion, in this group are ENCE and NVision. Yeah. However, with the way that the draw goes, all Riddle need to do is win one series, and that's against XY, who, in my opinion, are the weakest because they automatically go through, and then and then it's the losers bracket to go back
No,
up.
they still have to win 2 games, don't they? You basically just have to win 2 games.
Oh yes. Okay. Right. Scratch that. Yeah, because they go through, and then if they lose, then they play again, don't they?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going ENCE and NVision. I think those are the two sides who are going to go through. It could be Riddle as well, but I think ENCE purely because it's a 5-man roster and it's a strong roster anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go for NVision because I feel like there's something interesting about kind of having this side. And I mean, obviously it's NLC Fall, so everything could change when it goes into the NLC. But how would it feel for Riddle to not make it out of groups in the NLC Fall and losing to NVision? It's very interesting to see how that organization. I'm not going to say fallen because it's not like they were put in a good situation and they used it and it's not a bad roster which they've got now.
Yeah.
I think in other groups they might have got out of it as well. But I really like the NVision roster.
That they played in like some other tournament in the middle, haven't they, as well?
Yes.
And that's where they've so that's why they kind of let the other roster go as well and end up having to get a new one. So you can kind of understand it.
And I think Riddle, whether these players do really well, they may keep the players if they do really well. But I think if they don't, they're not going to be a team where, in my opinion, where they're just going to be like, right, okay, let's fight for relegation next. But they have already seemed to have shown that ambition, which I like. So
yeah, definitely.
But yeah, who are you going for?
I've gone also for ENCE. Unsurprisingly, not gone for NVision since I've got on D. I went for ENCE and Riddle.
I like the fact that we have gone. For those who didn't see our last tier list in the NLC, we very much had the exact same. So at least nice to know that we're a little bit different. However, did I put like Nord? I think I put Nordavind top or something like that in the last one.
I don't remember.
I put Fnatic like third or something.
I think we both had Munster ahead of them, didn't we?
Oh
I don't
yes,
think that was even that outrageous when we did it, but.
Yeah, let's forget about that one.
Now we've had our few weeks apart and we're just totally out of sync now.
Exactly.
That will make it more interesting now that we've got some differences. Let's see about Group B then. See if we've got any differences there as well. So in Group B, if I just look at that order again, so we start with Viking Esports. Okay, Group B. This is a group where I know
you're gonna say it.
So
okay, so the issue I have with Group B, and it's on us. It is completely on us. I can't watch so much League of Legends, but genuinely, this is the group where if I go off kind of name value, which you shouldn't do, it feels to me like it's the weakest of the groups. But it could also be a group where like a lot of things can happen, and there is one side which I think is a really really good team in here. So
I think that will probably be the same team for both of us. I've got 3 of these teams in D. So I've got Viking in D.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't really know anyone. So
I've gone Viking in A. I like Viking. I like Sharp. Sharp's a good player. I watched a little bit of LVP. So my knowledge of LVP is immense, obviously. Played for E-Monkeys, which were 10th in the LVP, but I quite like him as a player. It's a full Danish roster, I believe, as well. So, and I think Viking look really good in qualifiers. I think the main thing which I actually take off Viking as a whole is that they only lost to Barrage in the qualifiers for this to actually qualify for the tournament. So for me, that's a good sign in itself. maybe I've gone a bit too high and saying A, but I think if there's going to be kind of a team to do upsets, I think Viking could be that side. And yeah, I really like Sharp as well, and I hope Sharp performs because I don't want to say that obviously some of these players they'll be lucky to leave because I don't want to say that about an organization at all, but I think all of these players' goals, at least at this point, is to try to get into like the top ERLs and then potentially go further. And for me, Sharp probably is one of those people which we could see getting picked up by an NLC side if he performs well, purely because he's been around kind of that scene anyway, and he's Danish, so he's a Nordic resident anyway. So it'll be interesting to see if people do look at him a little bit more than other players. So, and I like the whole side as a whole, and I thought they actually performed well in qualifiers. So for that, I've gone A. Maybe looking at it, maybe a little bit too high.
To be fair, your A before was B, and where you've shifted it, maybe it makes it look a bit nicer.
So they were my B performers, yeah, and now they're A. They are my lowest A side though. So where I feel bad because I put Riddle B, but you know, I think it's a lot of it as well. Is that way I've done these rankings as well? Is I've kind of looked at the groups as well a little bit. And maybe I shouldn't have done, but I do think that does play a little bit of a factor that I actually look at kind of this team could grow in terms of confidence just by being the best side in a group, and that can help. And that plays a significant part, I think, in it as well. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing all of these sides play, to be fair, because I love seeing new players as well and players who I'm not too familiar with because I love being wrong about all these players. I mean, bloody Frumi brings up Barrage like UKLC Spring to me every like 2 weeks or something. Talking about
won't let you live down about Ericsson, basically.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I'm interested to see what some of these players can do. But yeah, but I'd put Viking A. I actually really like this side.
Fair enough. All right, the next team, if we're going in the order on Leaguepedia, I can't even say the team name, Tom.
I put PK.
Yeah, that's easier. I was thinking we could just call on that.
Yes.
Rather than Plejehjemmet Kalder. You gonna try?
No.
Okay, fine.
PK.
Yeah, another one. One of my 3 of 4 Ds in this group. Don't really know much of the players. From what I remembered, I didn't think even in ENCE Masters didn't they qualify, but then I think they didn't really do that much in there anyway.
They finished 6th in the group, so
I thought
they did make it to kind of they didn't make it too far in ENCE Masters. However, they did win the Danish league. So, which from what I heard prior to kind of ENCE Masters, the Danish league was one of the stronger leagues. Obviously it had Vipers in who they beat in the competition. I've put them at C. I've not put them at D purely because I think that some of the Danish sides are still pretty good in the league. Obviously, they finished 3rd overall in the league itself, but then won in the playoffs, which for me kind of shows. And maybe I'm looking too much into it, but it kind of shows to me that that's a side which can kind of do good in high pressure situations in a kind of a playoff format. Yeah. Exactly, which is essentially what the NLC Fall is. It's the exact same team from what I can know. Anyway, it looks like it's the exact same team which is competing. I may be wrong, but
I think it might
from
just
what
be
I
the
was
top,
looking,
I think it's changed.
Yeah, so if it's just the top which is changed, then I think that having 4 of those players is quite good. And again, I think this is another team which I think benefits of having a weaker group because it can kind of give them more confidence to kind of actually think that they can really, really push on. And that in itself, I think also means a lot more. Like momentum is so big in cup competitions. We saw it like too much when it was the UKLC in the original FA Cup kind of style format, how big momentum played. You had teams like Barrage who weren't the best, who weren't even the worst side, but because they were playing like one game and they played like the same team, the same big team like multiple times, it kind of ruined their momentum and managed them to drop. So, so I've not gone D. I've not gone bottom. I think that they're probably one of the weaker sides, but I still have faith for kind of like the Danish region as a whole and the strength of the Danish region below the NLC. So we'll see how this goes. And you know what I really like about this, and obviously there's a lot of criticism with why is like the Danish representatives or the Icelandic representatives or even the UK representatives, being honest, why did they get like qualification spots straight in? And I think that while I can understand like the disagreements and the agreements, what it's for me it's done is it's opened kind of my eyes to see what the strength level of each of these regions would be. So for example, if like a PK, and I was going to say the name then, if a PK does perform very well, then for me, at least at a base level, it makes me think, okay, well, maybe the actual region as a whole is something which I should maybe be paying more attention to. And it's the same with kind of like the UK scene. The UK representative in NVision is a little bit more difficult because they've kind of just created a team which I wouldn't necessarily think would be in, but PK is definitely one where they've stuck with their sides, and XY is another one. They've stuck with kind of what they get in that division, and let's see how they do against the NLC and how close these kind of leagues and divisions are.
Yeah, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's just one of those things with, that's the whole point of cup competitions. You can see matchups you wouldn't normally see. You can see these, kind of lower ranked underdog teams go and play without pressure against the more experienced players and see how they do. Otherwise, if it was just all the same teams from the NLC summer, we just got another NLC that's the same thing anyway. And it's,
and unless I'm wrong, apart from the sides which chose not to partake in the NLC Fall, I think all the sides who were in the NLC qualified through anyway through the playoffs eventually. Because obviously, so you've got like Munster who didn't. You've got Fnatic, you've got XL, but I believe that all the others have actually qualified for it.
Did Godsent not put a team? I don't remember.
Godsent, I can't remember if Godsent put a team out, but they might be the only one. But that says that it kind of shows that a lot of like the NLC kind of teams anyway. Yeah. We don't need Godsent. We got two Nordavinds. It's fine. Like they're the representatives, right? Of course. Yeah, but like so it wasn't like it would have been a little bit more unfair, I think, if all of a sudden none of the NLC sides kind of got through in qualifiers and stuff like that, because then you haven't got those big names. But a lot of the NLC sides have made it, and then you've got these other teams in the mix as well, which is interesting in itself, and a little reward for finishing first in your division, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Plus, like if you're an NLC side and you can't make a team that qualifies in the open qualifier, then that means you didn't deserve to place straight in the main event or the main part anyway, really. So, yeah. And like you say, no teams didn't make it through, I think, anyway, so it's all worked out all right.
Yeah.
Let's go on to the next team then. We've got KOVA Esports. Not D tier for me. So it's like one of the only non-NLC teams that's not in there. I've got them in B. From what we saw in LEC Masters. So they were the side that almost nicked Singularity's spot in the NLC. For me, look the strongest side into the Masters, and I think have got the whole complete roster still.
From what I saw, yes, it is basically the whole roster.
Yeah. So I was a bit more confident on them. Even still, I don't know too much about the players, but I've at least seen them all play a little bit into the Masters and look pretty good. So I've stuck them in B.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think they looked really, really good in Telemasters. And I think when we were doing the Telemasters kind of predictions, like we said that this was the one kind of series where it could have gone either way, because we weren't sure what Team Singularity we were kind of going to get in terms of performance. And yeah, in the end, they ended up losing, but that for me still doesn't discredit how good I think KOVA were the entire time going through kind of their own regional league to then make it to Telemasters and finishing. I believe they finished first above Granite Gaming overall anyway. So I've put them at B. So I've gone a little bit more generous. I feel like
I know I had a B as well.
Oh, did you have them as B? Yeah. Okay. So I've gone for B. Again, like I kind of look at them and I think it'll be very interesting to see how this side does now against some NLC quality teams. I think they've got put in a very, very good group. As much as I could say about kind of like looking on the inside and looking on the outside as the quality of the group from our perspective anyway. this is actually a really interesting group because I think this is kind of two sides which I don't think many would kind of expect to really push on. I would, well, maybe Viking. I think a few people, especially myself, would say would, but it's very interesting to kind of not be like, oh, it's going to be two NLC sides, two NLC sides, two NLC sides. So the fact that this group has kind of been drawn is really interesting. I actually quite enjoy all the groups. There was nothing inherently wrong. I feel like there's been tough groups. I feel like there's a tough group, but at the end of the day, in a cup format, I don't mind it. Now, if it was in like an NLC league format, I would be a bit more annoyed. But in a cup format like that, I quite enjoy it, and it's kind of the unpredictability about it. But I rate KOVA quite highly. It'd be interesting to see what they can do like post Telly Masters, and see if they can kind of prove themselves. I particularly like the mid laner like Mercer as well. I think he's quite good, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more from him as well. So, and I believe are these all the Finnish players? So, ENCE, if you say like, is this the audition? Like, you never know. ENCE representative might be looking and saying, "Well, there's more Finnish players. Oh, let's have a little brief look on these."
Yeah. Next thing you know, Snurmy gets a few wins on Ezreal. Kevo's sweating. Let's see.
But okay, I know that sounds really. I know obviously a lot of these players have the same regions together. A lot of them have gone for kind of full Danish or full Norwegian, and I think that I've said this in the NLC prior. I think that actually means quite a lot in terms of kind of having players who are all from the same nation. I think that there's this thing where people think just because they're European means that they're all going to have the same cultures. I think sometimes especially from like an outside perspective, from like NA perspective, and every kind of country has their own different kind of ways that they talk to each other. I believe we did a podcast on this about kind of regional differences and stuff like that. So it's good to see them all kind of have a Finnish roster, and it'll be interesting to see kind of how they push on. And I didn't even think about this. It'll be interesting to see what the comparison is between ENCE, who is also a full Finnish roster. Do they play kind of a specific way as well? So it'd be really interesting to see, and they could potentially face each other in the future. So
let's see, be an interesting one. And then the last one in that group then is UniQ. Another one I don't know too much. Spoilers, another D. Yeah, we're kind of getting towards the end of my Ds now, so it'll it's probably getting a bit boring now, but we'll be moved on very shortly. What do you think of them, Tom?
So these were the Swedish representatives of Telly Masters. We talked about kind of Granite, who obviously aren't in this group, but they've got a few players from Granite have kind of popped through, and then obviously we just talked about KOVA. They were kind of like the third, fourth kind of tier on that. So I've put them a little bit lower. I've put them at C. I think that Zombie was good in the Telliers as well. I think Baloo was good. So it's interesting to see kind of how they were. I mean, M-Test is the one which I'm quite interested with, the ADC, because obviously it was at the TCL in winter, finished 5th in the regular season. So that's for me. I don't know why, but when I kind of see like a player just pop up from another region and come into the competition, a lot of it makes me think: is it because there's not much happening around this time anyway from regional leagues, and so some players might just decide just to have a go, and see what they can do. So I think he'll be a very interesting kind of addition into the squad, and so I really want to see how he performs. But I think they look like solid players. I think at this level, for what we're seeing from the NLC Fall, I don't think they're a bad team. I don't think they're necessarily a blowaway team. I think it just depends on how the likes of M-Test can do, and how kind of a few other players can perform as well. So I've put them at C. I've only got one D team, and so we've already said it. Sorry, XY, because I think it's hard to discount someone who kind of in a league format has topped the kind of groups in that regional league, and especially considering some of them have not only like topped the groups, and that they've actually then performed pretty well after that. So
fair enough. Who have you got coming through the group then? Which two?
So I find this incredibly difficult. So looking at it now, I'm probably going to say Viking and KOVA are probably my two to go through. It's another one where I could see UniQ. I think Viking are probably one of the favorites to get out of this group. I know that obviously if you look at the you haven't done it, but on the esports one valuations, a lot of the Viking players are valued quite high, and I think it's because of the level of what this group is compared to others. The fact that you've not got an NLC side does make a big difference. So yeah. I do think Viking is the favorite, and then I'll probably go KOVA after that as well.
I've gone KOVA as well, and then the rest. Seeing as I had them all D, I've gone for UniQ. Kind of what you were saying before, really. How a couple of them are from the Granite team that was pretty good at TLE Masters as well. And yeah, that's kind of given the edge off of that. But I wouldn't be surprised if any of those three really.
Like I said, MTES could do really well. Like MTES is such, like, for me, an unknown entity and how he's going to do in this competition. Like I feel like the TCL as a whole is an unknown entity, because
you do see a lot of European players sort of come and go from there, and it's and then sort of still
sometimes they can be great.
Yeah.
Like I've seen like TCL players who have been like top 3 come to ERLs and then done nothing, but then you see someone which are like 8th, and then they've done brilliant things after that. So it really is kind of, sometimes it's one of those lessons where maybe the team was bad but the player was good, or maybe the player was not great but the team was really good together. So I'm just interested to see kind of a new name come through, and I wonder if he's one of those players where he might look to join the NLC if he does perform well, and obviously if offers are there, or is he doing it to then just go back to the TCL once everything's kind of sorted over there?
Yeah, we'll see. Right then, going on to Group C then.
This is my favourite group.
Yeah,
this is my favourite
group. A bit more familiar faces for us. If we start with them, we've got Barrage, is it a Danish org? They've got 5 Danish players.
Wait, are you sure it's Barrage? I feel like I'll need to double check when I see these players and I see that roster. For those who don't know, they've just acquired the entire Riddle roster. So the Riddle roster, I haven't got this written down. I'm going to try and see if I can just guess it from. Well, it's been a while since I've had to say it. So it's Doxy, it's Maxi, it's Senkux, it's Regé, and it's Wendelbo. Smashed it. They do have subs as well. I believe that in the qualifiers they played subs, and I can't remember who the subs were. I know that they were big subs as well, and I feel really bad. I feel really bad. It was Denvoxday and Yadron, and Flipper.
Oh yeah, because they were on the academy, weren't they? So so now they could still play for this one, I suppose.
Okay. But yeah, to get Denvoxday as a sub, I think is something else as well. But I think I'm going to jump in with this. I think this is probably the strongest side in the NLC. I don't think it's much of a surprise to say so. The team made it to EU. The team, as the players, made it to EU Masters. Obviously, maybe under certain situations, could have made it into the main event. They played like a ridiculous amount of games in a row, and there's this thing over burnout. And was it even correct for them to play? What was it, like 18 games or something silly like that?
Days,
yeah, exactly. So, I think it's a really, really good roster. They were better than what was BTXL at that time anyway. They're in terms of skill gap, probably the best roster as well. I don't want to Munster them, because I do genuinely feel like this roster should be looking at nothing but winning this competition.
Yeah,
like it really should be. I feel like with the others, there's so much, like, we have so much to say about how good Riddle are, but there's no point, because kind of everybody, Barrage are, because there's no point because of kind of how good we've seen them prior, where with other sides, it's nice to give a little bit more detail about the players and everything like that. But it's nice to see these players actually playing the NLC, because I was worried that we might not see them again. We may still not see them again, because I feel like some of them are really, really good players, but it'd be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I suppose the the only question mark there could be is how they are with Surza. Not saying that Surza is a bad coach, but it's obviously a different coach than what they had before. And if I remember right, I think in summer, because they had the first few weeks where they were a bit inconsistent, and then I think it was even LEC Wooloo that had said it. It was like that Cold had joined them, the old Origin jungler, and it kind of seemed like it was at that point where they properly kicked on. Not saying it was only him. Maybe we obviously don't know what Smeagol was doing with him behind the scenes as well. But yeah, that could be the only thing that could be any different, where we don't see them play exactly as they did. But still, yeah, it's theirs to lose really. I've got them S+ as a result, and they're the only team in S+ for me.
Oh, I've put them S+. Yeah, I don't even think I said. Yeah, I've put them S+.
Fair enough. We've got Frumies just confirmed. Flipper, Jadran, Demfoxney, and KDO are all subs.
Oh, that is something else. That's a team and a half anyway. But
And he's got a Barrage rebrand with Danish letters and whatnot inside.
I just to put this though on a downer for this. From a personal perspective, I really like seeing Demfoxney play. I think I've made that known for quite a while anyway. Like Demfoxney and Monk when he's playing ADC, I love how Monk plays as well. So it's a bit upsetting that we're probably not going to see Demfoxney. But at the end of the day, it's a great roster. They'll do a great run. It'll be good for the organization itself, and it'd be good for the players. I can imagine that the players wouldn't have done this unless they could all stay together, because they clearly wanted to stay together. I think that's why the Riddle deal kind of happened, and so it's nice to see these players kind of, what is essentially it is a legitimate competition, but it is off season kind of thing. So there are still a lot of other things to consider, and why not just have a go and try and win this? Because let's be honest, especially when you see BT, XL, and Fnatic not being there, this is the competition to do it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And what a roster to get. From what I've heard, they basically just no one else really even tried to get them, and Barrage had a go, and then they got them. So yeah,
they probably thought they were all tired from all those games they were playing. They probably didn't want to dare to say, "Hey, Doxy, do you want to play some more games?" They probably thought of it, shuddered him at that point. It's like, more games.
They've checked their accounts and there's no games for 3 months or something. Yeah, Frumi saying a masterclass. Very, oh god, what's the word? I'm blanking. Modest. That's the one. Anyway, so the rest in that group then, we've got 2 of the UK teams. We've got Barrage. We've also got MnM, who are, got a few players still from summer. So they've got Kakan and Aesthetic have stayed. Monk has stayed, thankfully, in the bottom lane. And they've also got Bendix and Tasteless. Now, Bendix and Tasteless I haven't really seen much of before, so I don't really know too much. But then from the rest of the 3, obviously Monk we know when he's playing ADC properly, not... Because even, he didn't even play that bad there of summer. But obviously that was after, he'd just been playing mid lane, so I think even then he wasn't probably at his best. If he can get back to his best, he is probably one of the better ADCs at this sort of level. And then Kakan and Aesthetic were 2 that actually looked good for MnM throughout the whole time, really, even when they were doing terrible. So I've got pretty high hopes for MnM. I've got them A tier as one of my top. I think I've got. So I've got 5, 6 teams in A and above. So they're in my top half at least.
I agree. I've put them in A tier. Look, so I'm gonna say the positives about MnM first. So Tasteless, I actually think he's a really, really good support, and I'm glad that we're kind of getting to see him. He was at Up Esports in the EU Masters, and yes, didn't perform very well in the main event. I mean, let's be honest, but when you actually kind of understand kind of the quality of the region which he was coming from and stuff, it'd be very interesting to see how he does kind of on what I think is quite a really competitive roster in a competitive tournament where there's not a chance where he's going to get stomped, essentially. I know that sounds really unfortunate, but there's always going to be a team at the bottom who's not going to perform as well as others, and it'd be nice to see how he does in kind of a competitive kind of tournament. However, obviously there may have been conversations, but I really did like Eli Wood as the support for MnM. I thought that he was a really, really good player, and I don't know if it's his decision or a team's decision, or they both just couldn't, come to an agreement. But I would have liked to have seen him back in this roster, because I actually did think that Monk and Eli Wood was a really, really good kind of duo. However, Tasteless is probably a very good replacement anyway. Monk in the bottom lane, we've slated him a little bit in this podcast, but Monk is a really, really good ADC, a really, really good player. And so to have someone like him, especially with Aesthetic, who I think, like we talked about all the roster changes which they did, Aesthetic was the constant way. Even when they looked bad, Aesthetic looked brilliant in some games. So, and Kakan is another solid player, I think an NLC level solid player. Bendix is the one where I'm a bit unsure of. He played in like the TCL, I think it was like in summer, but not in spring. And I think he must have took like a little bit of a break, or maybe not played as competitively. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how he does. But overall, I think it's a strong roster. I've put them at A as well. And I think that if we can get good Monk, we can get a good kind of run in, I think, from MnM. It's a shame of the group which they're kind of in, though, because I do think it's a little bit of a difficult group, but it's a team which I think could do well in it as well.
I agree. Speaking of the difficult group then, so the next team we've got is Team Singularity, who also look fairly different from summer, which, for them is good because they didn't look very good in summer.
Way to flame them.
Backhanded compliment, I'll say. So the one player that stayed is Flaxish, and to be fair, he was probably one of the better players in summer, so I was pleased to see that. Now, some of the other players we haven't really seen around our leagues that much. Dragrain was on Phelan before, but that was a team that wasn't that great, and it was they were there.
Didn't
really match. There were some players, maybe a couple of players that looked quite good, and then other positions maybe didn't really match up to them. So, a couple of players that were on that roster that we've seen sort of do better elsewhere. So I won't hold that against him. What I think these guys maybe got going for them, decent coaches. We got Torok, friend of the show. He's been on a couple of times. Kiao as well, been on the show before. So it'll be interesting to see, a couple of illegal drafts maybe coming out. I think it was Kiao even tweeted earlier saying it was a picture of Grim Reaper Karthus, basically like a Grim Reaper with a book, saying that was him doing his drafts in the Fall Open. So I'm excited to see what they're going to come out with. I'm fairly hopeful. I've got them in B tier. I'd be probably surprised to see them contending for the whole thing, but I don't put them in sort of the bottom half or anything like that.
So I've also got them in B. I think I agree with you with kind of I feel like Flaxis was probably the best side in that Singularity team, and so I'm glad to see him kind of get that place. And that for me kind of feels a little bit like a sign of confidence, kind of that actually, despite us not being particularly great in the NLC, you were one of, it's a bit like with Aesthetic and MnM. I think it was kind of like you weren't the problem, so we're gonna give you a chance again. I really like Alex. So Alex was in NVision in the UKLC last split, and looked really, really good, I think, in the UKLC, to the point where he could, I think, be a contender for actually being in a starting NLC roster, or at least being kind of like a top, like lower division ERL, lower in terms of like the UKLC or one of the Telia leagues, like a top division for them still. So I really want to see kind of how he does. Again, and maybe I'm looking a bit too much into it. The fact that the kind of Singularity is the one which has picked him up makes me think that maybe they're also thinking of possibilities of like, okay, is this a player we could keep at the end of this competition? So that's another one which I'm very interested to see. Zamluk and Jew, I'm not too much familiar, and obviously Dranye, I don't want to get too much into his time at Phelan, because from what I've heard, like it wasn't a fair representation, I think, of how he kind of was. I don't think he performed well, but I don't think he performed like badly as well. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how he's developed going back into facing what would be some similar players than what you could have had in the UKLC at the time. So I've put them at B. They're not, like I said, they're not a side which I think is gonna automatically win the thing. I think they've also been heavily disfavored because they've got a difficult group as well. I think it's hard in this group to kind of not. For me, there's a top two, and then it's hard to kind of beat that.
Yeah.
But if they do, then it would definitely for me be kind of through Alex and through Flagshift. I think that those two players are really good. And like I said, if Samlock and Shu are good, I don't know too much about them. So if they are like really, really good, solid duo together, they could do something. So it's one of those where I put B, but it's one of those which could have shifted. I could watch one game of them and be like, it's a C or it's an A, you know. So it's really one of those.
I think the thing maybe makes it harder for them when we come to talk about actually getting out of the group is, like we said, if we're on paper right now thinking Flaxis is maybe one of the better players, but then you look at the Barrage and MnM teams with Doxy and Kakan, you'd probably say that similar sort of thing for them as well, that top side is really strong. So if that is what Singularity got going for them, it will be a bit unfortunate that it's going to be bloody hard to play through that against those other teams. But we'll see. There is one other team as well, Absolved. Now, Absolved, another one, a few new players, a few new faces. They have got the Singularity lane
takes that and only 35. So this is interesting.
Yeah,
love it.
I've got them C tier, so they're not on my massive D list. Luckily for them. Takes that huge 35. To be honest, I didn't think they looked that great on the Singularity. Obviously, not many players did. But even just the fact that bot lane, obviously synergy is a key thing, that they've had that time spent together. If they're willing to play on a team together, you'd imagine that they can't have been having that many problems between each other, even when the team wasn't playing well. So you'd hope that's a good sign that they want to play with each other still. And obviously that's the kind of role where even in solo queue they could have easily been just continuing to duo together over the last month or so since that finished. So I'm hopeful that at least through the bot lane that they're going to look pretty good. So yeah, I've gone C for that.
This is I've gone B. I've gone a little bit higher than that. I think that this is a promising side, is the way that I put them. There's a lot of young players in it, and so I can. This is why I'm going to kind of contradict myself a little bit. So I completely agree that I don't think Takeset and Only 35 did well at Team Singularity. However, they're both still quite relatively young players, especially at Takeset. And so the fact that they've stayed together kind of makes me think, right, let's see then how they do in a different kind of coaching environment with different players around them, and see, obviously, like, you don't know. Like, sometimes for example, I don't want to compare them too much, but you look at G2's Venom Miffy, and then you looked at TSM's Venom Miffy. Like, it's the same bot lane, but the way that they were together didn't kind of gel for some reason. And I'm wondering then if kind of like they kind of know that they've got this kind of synergy, and they're both quite young and developing together. And so they've thought, well, let's stick together and try it again. And so I'm very interested to see how they do against Team Singularity, where you would hope that they want to have a little bit of revenge against as well. Because, if you could beat the team, which kind of like you didn't perform very well on, you're kind of then proving that you weren't the problem in that situation, kind of in a mentality kind of way. So I really like both of these best of threes in this round one. I think seeing Barrage and MnM face off is always great. And then you've got this kind of Singularity thing with Takeset and Only 35. I think the only thing is let's see how the other three players who I'm unfamiliar about, how they perform. So I didn't want to put them in C because there is something intriguing about Takeset and Only 35 staying together, which I do really think is valuable and kind of highlights that there is something.
Yeah.
So I've gone B, but I have put them below Singularity in the B tier because I do think Singularity overall do look like a better side, but there is just something intriguing about, and I believe Absolved's top lane is only like 20 as well. So they seem like quite a young squad, and it does feel like one of those teams where if they do very well, it might be like one team from the NLC will pick one player up, and then one will pick another player up because these are quite young players, even if it's for their academy sides.
Yeah. And also, being in probably one of the tougher groups, you'd imagine there's not much pressure on them either. I doubt anyone really expects them to get out. Obviously, we'll come to that more in a second. So, they can pretty much play without that pressure of having much expectation. It's funny, that you mentioned that the matchup against Singularity, that will be interesting. Obviously, there'll be sort of little, could even be little mind games of things. They'll be against Flaxish, so they'll maybe know, what could be done to shut him down, even pick and ban. And then the other way around, obviously, Torek coached both of them last split, so he may know what they prefer, may know how to focus them in draft as well. So it'll be interesting to see if they get a chance to play each other, because by the time they play, maybe they're both out, or maybe one of them's already gone through. So we'll see if they get a chance to play.
And I think as well that it's a smart play by Absolved, I think, to pick them both up as well. I think you have this chance of, even though they were kind of like a bottom tier duo in the NLC, there is a chance that, like you said, after kind of being together, and you would hope that they've duo queued together and been a little bit more together in terms of that, because I would hope that they would have known that they were playing together sooner. I can't imagine it being a situation where Absolved picked Take set up and then didn't pick I forgot his name.
35.
I've just only 35. I've said it like 20 times as well. I can't imagine them picking one up without the other. It definitely feels like it was a duo deal. And so you would hope that they've improved from that. So
true. I just realised, I was chatting a bit of rubbish. They are literally playing against each other the first game, so we will definitely see it happen. So yeah, hopefully there are the mind games then.
Tora could be off. He could be ill. He could just decide not to be there for the game.
True. Then Flaxis will have the picks then. He'll have something. Who do you see getting out of the group then? I think we'll probably agree on this one. I've gone Barrage and MnM.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where it sounds. I'm so convinced that it's going to be Barrage and MnM. I am, but this is actually probably one of the ones where I'm like, okay, but maybe Singularity and Absolve could do it. In terms of I actually think that all four of these teams do actually have a chance, but I feel kind of bad with the way they've been drawn. That I feel like there is Barrage and MnM, and then there's a little bit of a gap down. Now that could change, obviously, in a tournament format. You never know. MnM could beat Barrage in the first best of three, and that could destroy Barrage's mentality. You never know with kind of these things. And then you've got Singularity, who then maybe can kind of push on and beat them or Absolved, because with the knockout style kind of group stage, which it's a mini tournament in a group stage, which is different, but I quite enjoy it as well. So it'd be interesting to see how these go.
Definitely. So then, moving on to the last group, we start with Tricked, who are another team with literally zero changes. So
run it back.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if any team should, they're probably one of them. Did really well. Did probably above what people expected of them. It was one of those kind of looked more than the sum of their parts, really. A lot of the players on paper you maybe wouldn't expect to be one of the better NLC sides, but all together with Pad at the wheel, they were really good. And I've got them actually S tier, so they're my only S tier as well. So I had Barrage S plus and then Tricked S, and I've got them as my clear top two. What about you, Tom? Where are you putting them?
I put them S plus. So I've gone further than that. I think that you are completely correct. This team has run it back. It's no surprise that essentially the Riddle/Barrage roster and the Tricked roster are the two sides which we consider the top, because when you looked at the NLC, those were the two sides in the end who were can these sides challenge the academy sides? And Barrage's roster, with the players which they have now, could do that. Tricked, not so much, to a lesser degree anyway, but I still think that you actually look at these players now, and hindsight is so much, because I would never have put these players, not knowing how well they did in the NLC, I would never have put these players where they were. But a Chu, I think, stepped up so much in the last split. I mean, obviously we had we have this kind of running meme with Pad and Achu. Like they're just going everywhere together at this point. And even with Soft as well, I think as well, they keep that trifecta. But I think Aaron as well performed very well. Razor was a player which I don't think many people talked about because the way that the team played wasn't really around him too much, but I think he does a solid job for what he's doing. And then PlayStation as well is another underrated player because I think everybody kind of talked about Erin, Soft. No, sorry, they talked about Soft, Achu, and then Pad. But then Erin as well also facilitated his job really well. Like we were saying prior, like sometimes when you get a player who's gone from another ERL to the NLC or to switching ERLs, it just doesn't work stylistically. This one did. For me, if there is one team to beat, Barrage.
Riddle, but yeah.
It's so difficult. I'm gonna say it even when it's on the broadcast. I know. So I'm just gonna look at the players. If there's someone who's gonna beat Barrage, for me, it's gonna be Tricked in the sense of a safe bet. Obviously, we don't know how this tournament can go. Some could rise, some could fall. But in terms of a safe bet, for me, you can't go any further than Tricked. Like Tricked is a team, and obviously gamble responsibly. But Tricked would be a team which I would bet on to win because the odds would be too high for Barrage to win.
Yeah.
You always go for like the second or the third one, but it's like, well, yeah, I could reasonably see those winning it, and the odds are a little bit better. So Tricked would definitely be the team which I would go for. And it's an interesting group which they're in, so I love it. So it's nice to see how everything can kind of line out. So I'm looking forward to seeing Tricked again, just as a whole. I really enjoy how they play as well, and I'm so glad that all 5 of them are together.
Same. And to be fair as well, actually, I've seen Pad streaming a couple of times, like doing coaching with Soft, and I think with Achu as well. So he's still been. They may well have even known they were going to stay together, so he's still been coaching directly through this whole time. It sounds like. So they may be even better than what we saw in the summer as well. So yeah, let's wait and see.
Soft, and I do have to say this with Soft, like I talked about Achu obviously improving so much, but Soft as well was a player who, if I'm being honest, was always a player who I got told was very good, but then when I saw him, I never fully saw that consistency. We saw that in the NLC. And again, if he can put another good performance in here, it really puts him good stead. And he's a British jungler, so we know that they're good. Like that's it. We know that they're good.
And we've got to get behind him. It's one of like the 2 British players in the whole tournament, isn't he?
Oh, we're gonna talk about that at the end. I do have something to say about that.
Oh, let's see. Let's wait for that then. Okay then. Elsewhere in this group, we've got. Hang on. Tom,
can we do both of them?
Am I seeing double? Yeah.
Can we do both of them?
So we've got Nordavind White and Nordavind Black, also known as Nordavind and Nordavind Academy. So for anyone that's not aware, Nordavind Academy, because they did well in the Danish
Norwegian one. No, Norwegian one.
Norwegian
I believe.
League. Their academy team got straight into the Fall Open, but then their main roster had to qualify. But then obviously what happened is that they got their better players on the academy team that was already in it, and then it didn't make sense that their academy team was better than their main team, so they've just done away with those names and called them Black and White so that nobody knows anymore and we can all forget about it. Let's start with Nordavind White. That's the order that that I'm seeing them in. Where have I got them? I think I've got C. Yeah, so I've got them in C tier. Okay. There was... Hold on, where am I? I'm finding my notes. I'm lost. Here we go. Some of the players I think have been on Nordavind before when they were, doing well in Nordics. So I think especially their bot lane and they played together a few times. So, being in a quite short tournament, I think that should help them. The fact that they've got a bit of synergy already. Lucchesi in the mid lane's got some EU Masters experience, so should be able to sort of differentiate them with some of the rest of the kind of bottom of the pack teams. I was looking, even Spooky, the jungler, has played in the LLA, like the main South American league as well, which is one that you don't really see many. Well, you don't really hear about many players going over there.
Was obviously he was in SUP as well. He was another one who's gone from SUP to join into this competition. So, EU Masters experience. Yeah, they went 0-6, but they qualified for a reason.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So it's a team where it's like, not one that's got any real sort of standout names. Not trying to be harsh, for me at least. But then it's not one where I don't know anyone at least. A couple of names I recognise, and unfortunately for them, I think they're probably in a pretty tough group as well. But we'll come on to that. But then, in terms of a tier, then where have you got them,
Tom? So I've got them B. So I've got them a little bit higher than C. Mainly because I think that actually some of these players, while I'm not particularly well versed in them, some of them have kind of got EU Masters experience, like Spooky. I know that then Sven, I think he was with a team. I can't remember what the team was, but they were in EU Masters play-ins. They didn't qualify for the main stage, but obviously we're still in a play-in side for EU Masters. Obviously, you talked about Tide and Touch as well. And Luke C is kind of the one where I'm quite unfamiliar about. So I don't think it's a side where I think it's good. It's just that I don't particularly know because I don't watch every single region. So I think it's really interesting to kind of see Nordavind get two sides in for one anyway. Yeah. Just and however, out of the two of them, I do say that this would be the weakest one. There's something slightly weird that they managed to end up being in the same group. So right, I want to talk about this because there's not much more I can really say about Nordavind White. But so for the meme, it was great to see Nordavind White and Nordavind Black drawn against each other in the same group. However, and I don't want to call out the organization because it's not the organization's fault. It's anything like that, but for me, you want to kind of risk the chance of kind of causing something which could cause controversy. And I feel like by having two of the same organization in the same group, they're the same organization. There's no, they're not even sugarcoating it. It is the same organization in the same group. There is a opportunity for controversy to be caused, even if it is intentional or not. So I kind of hope that doesn't happen. And that's not me saying that, Nordavind White are going to throw games, Nordavind Black are going to throw games. Because I think Nordavind as an org itself is a well-respected org and wouldn't do that. But for me, you never want to be put into a situation where that could be put into practice or where that could even be considered. So I would have maybe made a rule that they couldn't have faced each other in the same group. But I doubt that they would have thought that a side would be able to get two sides in, you know, and Nordavind did it, and fair play to them for doing it. I don't blame Nordavind for going all out and trying to get two sides in because now they've got double the opportunity to get the prize money. And I think that's a fair point to have, you know?
Yeah. And it's not even saying that, that we think Nordavind would do anything dodgy. It's just
I don't think they would.
It's just the fact that there is a possibility. It just means that the tournament format has messed up a bit, let's be honest. Because if you look at the matchup as well, you've got Tricked against Nordavind White, which you'd think Tricked would win, and then Nordavind Black against Dusty. We'll come on to it, but I would imagine Nordavind Black would probably win. And then that would... So follow me here. So then we've got... Then that would make Tricked against Nordavind Black, which I would think Tricked would win, and that would put them through. That would put Nordavind Black down to the lower bracket.
And then if Nordavind White then beat Dusty, that could be Nordavind Black v Nordavind White in the final lower bracket.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think as well is that what the issue is that I don't think that either side would do this. And this is what I'm trying to say. But it's like I would hate it for Nordavind White to essentially get smashed by Nordavind Black, or for something to happen like that, or Nordavind Black gets smashed by Nordavind White. And then all you hear is comments saying, "Oh, isn't that a?" Because for me, and I know that wouldn't be the reason. The reason would be it's just because one team beat the other.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look good when you then have people who could comment over those things, because not everybody will kind of know the situation and will know the organization. I don't think anything bad will happen. I just hope that there isn't kind of a negative connotation with this, which and that's what I'm hoping, because I'd hope that people do their research, know that Nordavind's a good enough organization where I don't think they would do something like that. And if they did anyway, they know that they would be reprimanded. So I don't think they would. But just because I know that doesn't mean that some random person who's just going to click onto a stream and see Nordavind White v Nordavind Black for 3 minutes is going to, comment, oh, this is a fair game, for example, like that.
Yeah, exactly. Bit of a tangent, but let's go on to Nordavind Black then.
Neither of them are making it out of groups anyway. No, imagine.
Well, Nordavind Black, D tier, yeah. No, I've got them A. So
okay,
we've got the return of Prosfair. Prosfair's obviously not playing anywhere in the summer. Now that self-proclaimed hero of EU West after finding like the solo queue bugs and everything like that.
Yeah.
Which is pretty crazy, to be honest, like how something like that could have been going on, and literally it just took one person just actually tracking the games a bit.
Just pointed out. Yeah, one person with kind of like I can imagine that this thing would have been mentioned to them prior. But fair play to Prosper is that he does kind of have a platform, and then he also managed to kind of raise awareness for this bug anyway. That probably helped.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's with Chris Berg, and it's basically rejoins the old Misfits bot lane, which obviously had success when they were together. Coincidence in the top lane as well, who talked about a bit earlier. So yeah, it looks a decent team for me. I've got them A tier, probably getting out of the group as well. But yeah, we'll talk about that more in a minute. What do you reckon? Where have you got them?
I think you're underselling this team. I've put them S tier. Wow. So, see, you got Coincidence, who I actually really, really rate as a player. I think he's a really decent player. He's another player where, in terms of like, I like to think of him like Icebreaker, where he's a player where I think he can really, really turn a game on its head. I do think he has sometimes an issue with a little bit like Icebreaker with consistency and with certain matchups. But I think that if you can get him in a good matchup, especially. I think with the way of if you can get him kind of carrying a little bit, I think he's a very good player. So it'd be interesting to see how they play around that. Ploxy was obviously at Raccoon, who were in EU Masters. Obviously didn't perform as well as they'd hoped. Didn't make it into the main stage. But for me, Raccoon were a decent side in the regular season in the Italian league anyway. So to have someone like that jump in, also kind of Danish. So it isn't just like a random person who's decided to come in. Obviously Danish, around that Nordic scene anyway. I think it's a good option to go in. Fluffo, who was in Nordavind Academy. So probably, I mean, Nordavind Academy, the fact that like only Pluffo, from what I'm in this roster anyway, made it in, kind of for me highlights how much they kind of see in him as kind of a potential. So it'd be really nice to see how he kind of takes this step up to going from academy to, I mean, obviously there's no academy side, but for me, this is the main roster. This is like the main team. This is the team which is like, I could realistically see going into NLC if they wanted to with this full roster. So it's interesting to see them give Pluffo a chance to see how he does. Chris Berg and Prosper, for me, it's probably one of the best bot lanes in the competition. Chris Berg, despite Nordavind not Nordavind. Chris Berg, for me, performed very well. He was on Munster, wasn't he?
No, he was on Nordavind, wasn't he? I think.
Yes, Nordavind, yeah. Chris Berg, yes. I don't know why I thought Munster. Chris Berg, for me, performed really, really well and was a really, really good player, I think, in the split. It kind of wasn't the player I think that people were telling me about, so hopefully he can kind of improve a little bit more. But you pair, for me, I still highly rate Prosper. I think that Prosper had a bit of a bad time with NVision, who were meant to be seen as the academy killers. Kind of took a step away, kind of focused, grinded. He's not like he's been inactive on in League of Legends and stuff. And for me, he's still like a very, very top tier kind of in the NLC, especially like a top tier support. So to have him alongside Chris Berg and and like for me, I don't think it's ever going to be Nordavind if we don't see Chris Berg. I don't know why I even thought that he was on another side, because I feel like he's been on Nordavind for so long. They've trusted him and they've put him up with, I think, a really, really good support. And so I didn't put them above Barrage and Tricked purely off the fact that Barrage and Tricked are basically running with the same 5 people in terms of the 5 people which they've got. Where Nordavind might need a little bit more time, and it's a little bit more punishing when it's a knockout tournament to be 5 new players. Well, not 5 new players, but to be new players in a side where I can imagine it. Stylistically, it's a little bit different as well compared to what they were used to be playing. But I'm really looking forward to seeing Prosper. Out of every player who I've been looking forward to seeing in this roster, like in this competition, Prosper's the one I'm most interested, because I want to see kind of how good is he now. And for me, like, hindsight is, again, it's, I could say this if Nordavind's roster doesn't do very well, but I look at this roster compared to kind of the NVision roster which he has, and I actually think that this could be more beneficial for him anyway. So it'd be interesting to see how he does.
Definitely.
But so which one? What did you put him as? An A?
Yeah, A.
Oof.
But I only had Tricked and Barrage above him. My
see, I have 4. I have 4. I have ENCE, Nordavind, and then Barrage Tricked. So
there we go. That leaves us with just one final team then. Also Group D is Dusty.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not falling for the trap again. I'm seeing C-Boy Hoys and Vendetto the coach. I'm not going to be made a fool like this again. A tier for me.
Have you put him in A tier?
Yeah.
Oh my. Okay, go on. You have to explain this to me. I've just seen mine. I've put him in A tier. I don't even know why. They would have been my B tier, but yeah, I've put them in A tier.
Right.
Go on. Why have you put them A tier?
Well, those 3 is a key part. Obviously, C-Boy was a big part of. On the Rift was a big part of Godsense play last year. And hearing from the players, they were very vocal about Vendetto doing a great job behind the scenes as well.
Mm-hmm.
And he's come here with those couple from Godsent. Poulsen as well he's one of the Vipers team that did really well in spring in the Nordic leagues, and that team's kind of been picked apart, and all the players have kind of ended up in decent sides since then. So yeah, those are kind of the main guys that I knew about. So yeah, from that I've got A. I've got pretty high hopes. Don't have the highest hopes to actually get out of the group, but
I mean, you also got to take into account that Stembose did play for Samsung Morning Stars, who were in the EU Masters.
Yeah, true. And
so
took a game off LDLC.
Exactly. So another kind of they had a difficult time as well in EU Masters as well. But so you said A, and I was like, oh, I've put them at B, but actually I have put them in my A tier.
Yeah.
I think that I agree. Like, I'm not falling for it. I think C-Boy is a very, very good player. And, when people were telling me, oh, they picked this, decent roster, but it's not NLC quality. And people were telling me that there was some, like, Telia sides who were better than this roster and stuff like that. And some may even consider that. But for me, C-Boy especially, I look at that player and I'm like, that's a player who definitely defied, I think, a lot of people's expectations and really, really performed. And Hoys as well. Like, I think everybody in that Godsent roster did very well. Vendetto included would have to be put into account. I know that you got slated for not putting him in as your coach at the split.
Yeah, and you didn't, Sarah. You got off the hook.
Well, it's because I went for... Who did I go for? I went for... I can't even remember who I went for. A Pad. Did I go for Pad?
Yeah, you did, yeah.
Yeah, because of what he did with Tricked. Yeah, you went for Fanatics.
I went for the
you had
picks,
Nico.
yeah.
Like, but yeah,
that's just so he would come on the podcast, Tom.
Exactly.
It wasn't. On the record, it wasn't.
You know who's a really good coach? Like Youngbuck. Youngbuck's a really good coach, right?
Exactly.
I've heard Mithy's pretty good as well.
Crabs?
Um,
Is that's how you pronounce it, right? Yeah.
yeah, I think it is. Yeah, no, but I think Seaboy, obviously Seaboy and Hoy's really, really good players. I'm not too familiar about Click, if I'm being completely honest. Poulsen is one who. So I get your point that when he was with Vipers, he did pretty well. But then I believe after he went to like Serbia or something like that and was on a bottom tier team. So maybe this is kind of he's had one really good split with Vipers, went to Serbia, had a bad split. This is kind of where is he? Where actually does he put in that level? And then you've got Stenboss, who I think is actually a really, really good top laner. And again, it's another player who regularly I'm not used to seeing, and so I'm very happy to be kind of seeing a player like that. Yeah. I've put them A. Is this right now? Obviously, is this the higher the biggest tier in terms of the competition in this group? Is this the group which actually has, you would say, like the strongest four of all the four, the strongest four? I would say so.
I think I would say probably any team from this group. Maybe if other than Group C, Group A or B, I think any team from Group D would probably fancy themselves with a chance of getting out of Group A or Group B.
Yeah,
I'd say it's probably the closest group in terms of every team being on not a huge change in level. Well, actually, no, I'd probably say Group B, but then this one I would say is like a level above. Does that mean it was tricky for you to pick two teams to get out?
Definitely. Like this was really difficult. So I've gone for and by the way, wait before we finish with just it. I am gonna say this because I said that the roster last split lacked a little bit of ambition. Yeah, I really like this roster. This is a roster which for me feels a lot more like aggressive. It feels like a roster which I'm excited to see, and that is something which I didn't particularly have last split. But in this NLC fall, like if they have this roster in the NLC next split, I actually wouldn't be too disappointed. Even though you could even say that maybe the skill level isn't like in terms of it's hard to compare, but you could say that the skill level isn't there. But in terms of excitement for the roster which they've got, actually, I'm really happy with what Dusty have done. With that being said, I've got them not making out a group.
Same.
And I've gone with Tricked and Nordavind Black.
Yeah.
I feel like Nordavind Black they are probably the strongest side which isn't running the roster back, essentially, in my opinion, in terms of kind of the ability of the players that they've got. Because obviously, for me, above them, I've got them like fourth in the competition, and the reason why is because I've got ENCE, who I've got above them, who I think are actually going to be really, really good in this competition, and I've got Barrage and Tricked, which are essentially, the same rosters. It's what for. We've already talked about that with Barrage anyway. So I've got them going quite far, depending on obviously how knockouts go. But yeah, for me, Tricked and Nordavind are two exciting rosters and two rosters that I'm really good with. And we forgot to say this, but Pad for Tricked has a knack of doing well in knockout tournaments. I don't know if you've heard. So kind of remember that 7th place Feeling team, which he finished 4th with, or something like that. Mental. Came in right at the end and just transformed that side and finished in the knockouts. Couldn't believe it.
Yeah, crazy. So we'll see. Yeah, they should thrive then, especially all best of series as well, even the groups.
Yeah, Pad was the one who was probably suggesting this. It's like, hey, we don't need traditional group formats. Just do knockouts. Losers brackets and a group stage. Yeah, what do we think? Love it.
Pressure's on them for them to do well.
So, right, I'm gonna put this question to you. We haven't prepared this, so as a not like we're probably gonna be completely wrong. But if you had to pick one side to win this competition, so I don't want to say two, one, which one would you put your money on right now? Considering we haven't seen any games played from any of them.
I think it has to be Barrage.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I think especially without seeing them play, that's an easy one, Tom. That's not even that hard. I was sweating, and I thought it was gonna be something proper difficult. It's just
Can you tell me the AP ratio?
God help me. No, yeah, it's basically the second place from from summer. But yeah, I don't know. The only thing I can think against them could maybe be the coaching change. Maybe somehow slip them up a bit, and maybe Sursa might try and change something that doesn't really click. Or Tricked could have improved a lot more, seeing as their whole thing and Pad as well is staying there. What about you then? Would you pick someone different?
I'm going to pick someone different because you picked Barrage. I'm going to say Tricked. I am going to say Tricked. I think that the meme aside about padding these knockout runs, I would say that this side is a very, very strong side. It was in the NLC anyway, and could potentially beat Barrage. It's the only side I look at that I actually think could beat Barrage in a series. So I'm going for Tricked. However, like I've said, ENCE, Nordavind, maybe even NVision, I actually look at as like outsiders, and and then you've got Viking as well, and even MnM. Like MnM, I think are another side which on their day could actually probably do something really good.
Yeah.
So I think overall, like it's fair to say there is a disparage, I think, between some teams in terms of quality. But like I've got on mine like 8 from B to D and then 8 from A to S. So for me, that's a good for a cup. That's a good mix. That's a good mix of kind of from bottom to top tier like sides. And so I'm really happy because it could have easily been that I could have had like 8 B tier teams and everything like that. But it kind of I've got more good teams than I have got bad teams in terms of even. I've only got 1 in D tier, 2 in C, and then I've got like a clump in A and B, and then I've got B and I've got S and S plus. So,
and I think, I don't know, with a cup competition like this, especially one that's like a sort of like an off-season one where it's maybe not. I don't want to say not as serious, but like there's meant to be something a bit different. I like the fact that you're going to have a bit of a disparity, and you can see upsets.
See new teams.
I think it may be especially being like English football fans because it's just something like the FA Cup, and that's why I think we like the Forge Champions for 4, even if the teams didn't like it that much. I think we were kind of missing that, so I was I'm glad to see something like that where you have got some outsiders that have still got a shot, even though it's not like an open qualifier. But I'm excited. Plus, I picked Barrage and. You've just gone against them, so you basically just guaranteed that I'm going to be right now.
Guarantees. Who would have loved like an FA Cup style tournament? English League of Legends players. Unfortunately, there isn't that many of them. So I'm gonna say this now. Like, right, I can understand why there isn't because we have to be honest that the pool in the UK isn't as big as what it is. However, as like you look at the Nordics, for example, and I think there's this major conversation which has recently been going down about is it going to end up where the NLC is essentially just not going to be any UK talent because the player base is so like populated in the Nordic regions. It's one of the most like popular in terms of a European standpoint. It's one of the most popular like player bases for that in esports in general, not just talking about League of Legends. That is there going to be an issue that then the UK scene's kind of going to die along with the success of the Nordics? I don't think it's going to be as bad. However, it's bad though in what I would consider like it isn't like an A tier tournament. I know that the NLC, and I know it's a tournament which I'm really looking forward to, but I know that the NLC are trying to push it as well. But for me, it is like I have the feeling of off season, and so for me, it is like an off season kind of tournament. Even though I'm really looking forward to it, it would have been nice to have seen maybe even an NVision. Even though I like that roster, it's hard. I like the NVision roster, but then I'm like, it could have been nice to have seen like a British roster come through. I know that like we don't have many mids, but maybe Chimera. I know he's a sub on one of the teams, but maybe Chimera could have got a chance on it. And obviously we've got Prosper now who's coming back, which is nice. But just to see more British players, I think would have been are a little bit more comforting compared to. I believe we only have like, I might be wrong, but I think it's like 3 or 4 active.
Yeah, I think it's literally
playing.
Prosfair, Soft, and Jamsey as well.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So it's not enough where I'm like, if there was like even 5 or 6, I would be like, okay, well, that's probably the level of what the UK participation is. But I'd like to think that it'll be better. Not better. There'll be more players in the UK scene who could do stuff like. Surely there was some people in the UKLC who performed very well, which could have got a shot. I mean, I guess one of them did, and it was Alex. But Alex is Swedish, so it doesn't count. So yeah, it's one of those. I know that Crane he talks about this quite a lot in terms of kind of like we've got to be careful that while the Nordics and the NLC will be is very good for the league and the ecosystem, it could be inherently bad for British players unless you're a jungler. If you're a jungler, you're fine. Maybe a support. So, but yeah, I'm on the fence of it right now. It's going to be one of those where I'm going to have to see how it develops in a few years. But I'd hope that if it does become a problem, then for me, you should look at the UKLC and be like, for me, you shouldn't be looking at the NLC. You should be looking at the UKLC and be like, right, okay, well, you getting these, are you developing these players enough where they could go to the NLC?
Yeah.
That's what it should be for. It should be for the development of players. And so if you're not seeing British players getting developed through that system or even through like Newell and stuff like that, for me, if you're good enough, you'll get in. And so it'll be interesting to see if it is kind of a structural problem or if it's a player-based problem or kind of what the problem is. But at least the NLC is kind of identifying that, and the roster like breakdown kind of shows that there is something which is not correct right now. I think it's just finding that and sorting it out.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know what sort of teams UKLC sides get for scrims. Even like NVision were the best. Well, they won UKLC in summer. You would imagine some of the lower tier NLC teams would have scrimmed them, and even if it is full of Danish and Norwegian players, if they're better, it should really help the UK players anyway. So even if they're not right now making it to the NLC, you'd hope at least they get to play against them because of the whole feeder format, and maybe at least helps the UK players to grow that way.
And that's why I really hope that Jamsey does very well. Like, he's a young player who is kind of jumping into this now, and I really hope that he does very well because we need to see more British players, I think, competing. It's becoming a slight issue, but for me, it's not like a hold. Let's change this, restructure everything right now. It takes time, it takes development, but we've got to see, I think, more like diversity in the sense of in the NLC with British players, because especially if the rumors are to be believed, especially if the likes of like Dan is going from the NLC, that's a big British player who's kind of left. And so I would hope that maybe getting somewhere in like Prosper, who could actually then keep that British contingent, because for me, if I'm an upcoming player and I'm not seeing any British players in my top division of my regional league, that's a worrying sign. And for me, would you be like, well, is there any point?
Yeah, very true. Let's see then. Hopefully, at least Prosper stays around. That will give us one more. But I suppose the ones that were in the, who else is in the NLC that isn't in this? It's obviously like Dan and Xmatty and
Xmatty's in the whole
Kasing, Deadly, but obviously those wouldn't really be playing in this anyway.
I know that obviously you could have maybe seen Shikari come in, but I don't know. I think he's kind of taking time off and stuff like that. So there is like a couple other British players which maybe could have gone in. Probably Chimera's another one, like I said, I've said prior. But yeah, so it's difficult, isn't it? Because I feel like we do kind of have like a good core British side, like which you could actually build like a decent side out. But I think it's kind of getting these middle of the pack. And it's not, I don't think it's unfair to say that these middle of the pack, these kind of young, even British players, there's not many of them, apart from, like I said, Jamsey, who's coming through. But then Soft, as also, like I said, proves the point that, like, you could still be a mechanically talented player and be British, like Dan, for example, as well, who's I would arguably say is one of the best junglers not in the LEC. Well, at least not right now, anyway.
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed Kerberos comes back then, at least.
Oh, I was upset not seeing Kerberos in this roster, but it's fine. It's fine.
I think he did alright.
Kerberos is doing bit. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
doing
he was
fine.
alright in Prime League. They got in playoffs at least, so it's not too bad. He could do a job, definitely. Well, let's wait and see. We'll get the Fall Open out of the way first, and then we'll start thinking about
more roster rumours.
Yeah.
Can't wait. Cannot wait.
What do you make of the? Did you see like all the hate on LEC Wooloo for the perks and cap stuff?
Oh, so it's one of these, isn't it? So I personally, and again, I wonder if this is because we're coming from like a British kind of perspective. I bloody love transfer rumours. Like in Britain, like transfer rumours are just like some of the most. We have a day of transfer deadline day in football where we make a party out of it. Essentially, like the whole sports channel, Sky Sports, just turns yellow. It turns into a proper deadline day, and all that day is, apart from confirmed transfers, is essentially this player is rumored to go to here. Where are they going to go? And this is how much it's going to be, and this is the repercussions of it. And I'm like. For me, I love LEC Wooloo. I love kind of the whole transfer rumors and stuff like that. I can understand why people were annoyed as soon as Fnatic lost. I think the main one which got it was as soon as Fnatic lost, he did like a rumor about like was it like players potentially leaving? I think it was like
Nemesis is probably gone.
Yeah. And I think that there was obviously bad timing towards that, but I don't think when I read it, I wasn't like it wasn't anything malicious. Which it was not like he was like, oh, tough luck on in this, but you're gone anyway, kind of thing, So maybe you could have done that another time, but with rumors as well, you want to be the first one. If you're confident in your sources, you want to be the first one. And to be fair, as long as he's not making it up, like people are questioning the validity of rumors, and I think that that's such a silly thing to even think of, because a rumor is a rumor because literally something has been spread around and someone who you would hope is reputable has told that person something.
Yeah.
There are probably going to be players who are going to be talking to about 12 different organizations at one time. I can't imagine a player being like, I'm just going to speak to this one org and then that's it, because they will know that the chances are that might not even be their only option, or that might not be the option which they end up going with. So, of course, there's going to be rumors of, oh, could it be perks in NA, or could it be perks in Fnatic, or is it that perks is just taking time off and Pinoy is going to play as a sub and stuff like that? Like, because probably all of these are going to be conversations at a time which have occurred. For me, if you don't like hearing kind of information like that, then for me, you just shouldn't listen to rumors. You should just wait until it's confirmed. But I don't think there's anything wrong with being like, oh, I've heard that there's talks between this, as long as the source is correct, And that doesn't even mean the information needs to be correct. As in, like, the source has said that this has happened and that is right. That doesn't mean that is like confirmed, because it's not confirmed.
I suppose it's a bit of an odd one, because like you said, being like football fans, we love it, and like as soon as I'm sure you the same. As soon as we found LEC Wooloo's account, it was like one of my
followed it.
I think
I followed it when it's interesting.
We spoke about it with like a few hundred followers, I think, and now he's got like 20,000. Yeah,
because he used to just do like NLC rumors. Like, he used to do a lot of like ERLs and NLC rumors, and now it's like LEC, and he's got like 20,000 followers. And I'd like to think it's someone in the NLC. I'd like to think it's one of the coach. It's like, I feel like every guest we should just be like, are you LEC?
Blink twice if yes. But yeah, I think like coming as football fans, every football fan, I think, loves that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's really fun. I've seen people make the argument of saying that how it could damage a player's chances, and I think it was Odawamne come out and said it recently, that there was an off-season where there was rumours about him that weren't true or weren't proper finalised, and teams actually weren't bothering to try and get him because they thought he'd gone somewhere and he hadn't, and he got basically screwed over by it. So I guess in that sense, it's maybe a different thing slightly to what we used to in football. Obviously, with football, most players are under contract. If they don't leave somewhere, they're just at the same team. Whereas in league, it's mostly free agents, and if they don't get a new team, they're out of a job.
But then, can I be completely honest? Is that the fault of the rumours, or is that the fault of the organisation not bothering to even tap?
Maybe even like, not trying to be harsh, you maybe even say the players like, there's no reason a player can't contact teams and say, if it's a few days going past and no one seems to be getting in contact, or why even wait? Just if there's teams that you think you want to be on, you've heard about a couple of players going there, why would you not make the contact yourself anyway?
And for me, and I guess obviously it's one of those where if it does happen, it happens. But you'd hope that the ecosystem would change, where maybe I don't want to say it, like a random LEC team wants this player, but then they've heard that LEC Wooloo is saying that they're in talks with someone else. Like, for me, why would you believe what is clearly being described as a rumor? It's not like even like ESPN do it. They do a little bit more heavy source rumors in terms of there are a lot of them are 80% confirmed rumors anyway. But at the end of the day, you should still inquire about those players, because that rumor could be happening. Whether that rumor is true doesn't even matter, because at the end of the day, that rumor could then change because that player might want to join your team and not the other team anyway. Okay. So I think it's one of those things where I think as League of Legends grows as an esport, things like this are going to come with it, because people are a lot more into kind of the nitty gritty. So it's not just now, oh, this player is good. Actually, now people want to care about organizations and partnership deals, but then also roster rumors, and it's very much kind of how football went from, oh, he was a good footballer conversation, to now, everybody wanting to know about the latest kind of deals within the club, and the latest kind of rumors, and even down to the youth academies and stuff like that. Yeah. As it grows, the attention of what the consumer wants also grows. And so organizations need to be aware of that and not fall into this trap of, oh, there's been rumors about this player there, so we're just not going to contact them. There's no point, because and I think that just shows the infancy of the ecosystem, and you hope that does change.
I think it's just, especially as players get more and more money as well. I think that's even part of it. That's what gets, the biggest head. A couple of years ago, you had obviously Jacob Wolf tweeting about, or doing his articles about, this player's going there. But you think the big ones now, it's like Hooney goes to here for X million contract. Jensen re-signs a team at X million contract, and I think the money getting bigger makes that interest in the transfers bigger. Exactly. It means that people are paying more attention to the rumours. And probably, maybe a bit unfortunately, you will end up getting people just spouting nonsense, especially happens in football, where they'll just make up shit, and you'll end up with Crystal Palace, the chairman coming out and saying that Sky Sports has made stuff up.
Yes.
Because I think that's maybe, I think that was one of the things people were annoyed with LEC Wooloo, where he'd said about with the perks and caps. It was one day it was the rumor was that that perks may leave to play mid, and then the next day rumor caps may leave, but I have no idea what percentage chance. It's that's a bit of like a cop out. If it's one of these players could leave, but I don't actually know if either of them might, or if maybe none of them, then that's something that's maybe there's not enough even to bother making a statement. And people got a bit upset.
You've also got to take into account the fact that and this happens in football, so I don't know how much it would happen in League of Legends, but there is a high chance that kind of or team owners will leak information to certain people to kind of raise awareness of either someone is a free agent or they want them to go, or the fact that they are interested in said person. This happens regularly in football, in all aspects, whether it be the team or whether it be an agent or stuff like that, or even a player themselves. For me, maybe I'm looking too much into it, but when I see a footballer like a tweet of a or follow a team on Instagram and stuff like that, all of a sudden, when surprisingly there's been rumors about that player,
or their bio gets wiped out.
Exactly, there's certain things which I think do kind of go into this, and also on the opposite side, there are people which could also feed information which might not want a certain story to go out.
Yeah.
And so, for example, I'm not saying that this is just the example because of the one which you're saying, but with Perks, like maybe the Perk story is legit and he does want to leave, but maybe they didn't want people to know about it as much. Maybe because they want to keep Perks, but Perks wants to leave, for example. And this is not me. This is just an example. And so misinformation, that information then could go to someone else and saying, actually, no, it's Perks who wants to leave. So it kind of crosses wires and it makes that initial rumor seem less viable because now there's more rumors about it. And so it is a bit of it's a weird game with rumors, but for me, you should always play off it that a rumor is a rumor unless it's confirmed. Unless that team says that tweet and says, look, this is it, then it is a rumor. Like when Travis Gafford basically did a video saying about Jensen signing his contract, and he said it's a rumor. I did not believe it until Cloud9 announced that he had signed a new contract. Because for me, that is the only way that you know that it is confirmed, unless it's on like the database, and stuff like that. And you're saying about interesting contracts, like Jensen's, was it like 3.6 million or something?
Yeah,
I might be higher than that.
Or Alfari's is rumored to be close to
like
that
7 figures. Yeah, exactly. So when you've got numbers like that coming around, how can you not be interested? Like just in general, when to put this in perspective, like the first £1 million player in like football was in like the 90s. Like the first player to be transferred for £1 million, at least in the English Premier League, was in the 90s.
After like 100 years of the sport.
Exactly, and so look at it after 10 years now in League of Legends. Obviously, the ecosystem's different as well. Like prices are inflating a lot, and so it's really interesting.
Was it Vulcan was the first £1 million transfer fee?
Yeah, not even a contract. Yeah, that was the first transfer of a player. Yeah, and obviously you had like the Impact like rumored like 7-figure contract. Hooney's obviously, I think that was announced that was like a massive 7-figure contract. So I find this stuff interesting anyway. That's why I'm really happy to be working at Esports Insider, which does like the esports business kind of news anyway. Information like that is important now, and so people want to know and people want to find out, and then also like other people around the industries want to find out as well. I like rumors. I love rumors. I can understand why people get annoyed, but for me, if you get annoyed, then don't listen to them. It might be something you might need to get used to a little bit. To an extent. I don't believe in like false rumors. By false rumors, I mean like rumors where people haven't got any sources whatsoever. They've just like, oh, I think that Faker is joining TSM. There's no validity around that at all, and they've just said that.
And to be fair,
I don't believe in that.
If people are like annoyed at rumors being so wrong, I don't know. In football, you end up which journalists and stuff you can rely on, especially like depending on which team you support. Like as a Tottenham fan, I know of the 2 or 3 journalists that are the only ones to bother listening to because they're the ones that are basically the mouthpiece for the team anyway. So even if it turns out LEC Wooloo is throwing a few dodgy ones out there, and it turns out maybe it can't be the most trusted ones, you still know that people like Jacob Wolf basically never get things wrong, and you'll work out who is better and who is worse, and you know who to listen to anyway, and you can basically ignore the rubbish ones. So. And
you can tell, and I can tell you this: one of my favorite things in League of Legends actually was recently, and I am going to give Jacob Wolf a lot of credit for this. Jacob Wolf specifically, I bloody loved the free agency show last year, which they did at the beginning of the spring split last year. I cannot wait for the free agency show this year, which is in like less than 2 weeks' time. Like I'm looking so forward to it because just again, it's transfer deadline day, but it's different. But it's like free agency's opening because we all know that organizations have had talks and stuff like that, but they're not allowed to legally sign contracts until this time at this date. Whether the signing contract means they've signed everything but the last bit, I guess is something else. But up until that point, no contract is valid until they've signed the contract on that day. So when that free agency comes here, like it's coming in. This player is going to this, and it's like Jizuke is going to Evil Geniuses. I'm like, what? Like Jizuke going to Evil Geniuses? It's like that excitement of knowing that these transfers have been going on in the background and stuff like. Oh, Vulcan is going to Cloud9, but I believe that was another big one, and I can't wait. I mean, I know that I don't know if you've seen it, but Fnatic did a tweet and it had an Italian flag and it had a sign in. Right now, I don't think it's a League of Legends sign. They might have even announced it now anyway, so because we've been recording. But people are like, I looked at not the Reddit, I looked at the comments afterwards, and like, this is why they do it, because people are like, oh, it's not Jizuke, is it? Is it Jizuke? Like, some people are loving the fact that it could be Jizuke, and they're like, oh, but it could be a CS:GO player, and it's like the impressions that they literally put two symbols, and the impressions that they got was probably so much because people are engaged.
I looked at the replies in that tweet. I know exactly what you're on about.
Exactly, because and that's two symbols. Like they had like 200 characters, and they probably did more than that than what they did. Two symbols. It's great. And that kind of shows there that at least I think even the esports organizations themselves kind of know that there's a lot more interest going into this stuff, because I would say like 3-4 years, like I think it really started actually, for me anyway, my interest was the caps move. That's the one which I think kind of for me started this whole trend of, oh, any transfer can kind of happen. There was always transfers and stuff like that, but when it was announced that Caps was moving from Fnatic to G2, and then Perks would go as ADC, I think that kind of opened up this whole, like, because that was a rumor at first, which then was like quickly then made official.
Yeah, and I think the magic of that one, there was like a rumor about a rumor, and it actually didn't get leaked for ages, even though all of these like personalities were saying there is a big rumor, and no one was leaking it, and then so even that went on and dragged it on more, and I know what you mean. It was wicked. That was like the best.
And I think that kind of led to stuff like that now, where you're now getting a lot more of this like interest of like actually people are really interested of where players are going and what the teams is and what the price is and what the repercussions of that are and everything, especially in the West. Now, I don't know what it's like in like Korea and stuff like that, but especially in EU, because I think a lot of us in EU have that football background. No matter where you are in the country, like football is very prominent in Europe. So it's interesting to see kind of those kind of situations happen.
Definitely. I think we should probably wrap this one up, Tom.
Oh God, we talked so much on these ones.
The tier lists are always long anyway, and we've got bloody 16 teams, and then we've rambled about transfers as well, because we can't not talk about them. I think this must be our longest episode. We're over 2 hours now, so
No way. I mean, my voice is gone. So, well, we had to make up. We had to make up for it. So
exactly true. I even a couple more topics popped in my head, but I think we can save them. So let's wrap it up then. We could do it. I'm not sure exactly on the schedule if we'll be able to do an episode in the middle somewhere. I don't.
It will probably be so. I think we'll be able to do one after the groups. I think because then they have the knockouts.
Yeah, because the groups finish on a Sunday and then it starts again the following Thursday. So that would be basically next week sometime. Ranked ends Monday, so I'm not. I've booked a half day off work because I need to get. I got last pre-season. I got into platinum, and then I couldn't get back to platinum during the actual season. So it's going to be my final push. I'm gold 2 at the moment, so I'm not a million miles away. So maybe after that, sometime, maybe on the Wednesday. Well, I don't know. Maybe
we'll see if we can get someone on as well from there.
So stay tuned then. Keep updated on the.
But we'll be like, oh, Nordavind was so bad. Why did we trust in Barrage? Tricked. Yeah, they did trick us, right? Yeah.
Let's see. Maybe you've jinxed him now, Tom. Maybe that's foreshadowing. Anyway. All right, so if anyone is still listening at this point, then thanks for sticking with us.
You deserve a medal.
Might have to watch it in batches, listen to it in batches. So thanks for listening. If you are listening on YouTube, you can of course follow on there. Same as on Spotify. You can also follow 96 on Twitter to see when we are doing other episodes. Otherwise, you can follow us both directly. Twitter's also on the screen. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening.